do you want?
Hello and welcome to another week of What the Fuck Do You Want? And with me, we have a first-time podcaster, so everybody be gentle, he's a bit nervous. Hello, Andy.
Hello there. How's it going?
I am Magic, how are you?
I'm all right. Yeah. I'm just going to put it on record here that Chris has got the patience of a fucking saint because he asked me to do this like 2 years ago.
I was hoping to bring this up later and get snarky about it, but you've just taken the feet from under me.
No. Well, this is why. You see, I'm an experienced hand in how to control the narrative.
My routine has just become that stereotypical, everybody sees it coming.
No. It's one of those things where, like, in order to get me on a podcast these days, the fucking everything has to be a perfect lining up like situation, and it finally did. So, yeah. And unfortunately, I'm a man of my word, so here I am. He's got his man. He played the long game.
The amount of small animals I slaughtered just for this to happen.
I mean, it was worth it. Like, you know, what else
definitely.
was I going to do? Like, sit around, eat some grass. That's not that interesting.
No thumbs, bless them. So we'll better get to it. How would people know your voice?
Well, this is the thing I was thinking about, is like, hello, my name's Andy Hamilton, and I'm here from, I don't know, my fucking Twitter feed these days, basically. But no, I've been on like a bunch of podcasts that people really liked back in the day, which are now gone from the internet. So good luck finding them. But as well as those, I've written for pretty much every website and a lot of magazines when they existed. So I've been around and seen a lot, and now I'm here.
I was going to say, most recently, what was the podcast, Arseholvania?
Arseholvania, yeah, which again was another one which fell victim to my inability to have free time, due to, you know, life and various other situations. But Stu's the best. Have you had Stu on here?
Not yet. I should
Get
ask.
Fucking Stu on here.
I'm so shy. You know me.
Okay, well, you asked me multiple times.
I was very drunk.
We'll just get steaming and ask Stu. Get Stu on.
Ask everybody.
I mean, it'll be a nightmare of an episode. You'll be sat here talking about Alfred Chicken.
I could smile and nod at that. Yeah, that makes for great podcasting.
There you go. Half an hour of Alfred Chicken. Get him on. I'm not here for that, though.
Oh, no. We shall get on. Because, yeah, as you said on Twitter, you upset people. The Last of Us. Red Dead Redemption 2. What's your problem? Their art in video game form.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's. Do you know what the funniest thing about doing that stuff is? It's because you'll occasionally get people roll into your mentions who are like, you know, they've got like a PlayStation logo as their avatar or something like that, and they're like, you know what, man, no one fucking cares what you think, and it's so funny because you're just like, you know what, the problem that you have there is, unfortunately for you, little man, is people do care what I think, to the point where I have been often financially compensated quite healthily for having this opinion. So I'm very sorry, my man, but it's you who they don't care about. And I think that's the worst thing.
You really should just save that as a little template, so it's not even replying to them, just there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the worst thing, is the sudden dawning realization. That's usually what gets me blocked.
Yeah.
I love an argument on Twitter. Like when those random people come in, most people are just like, leave them alone. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing anything. I'm sat on a
breaks
bus.
up the boredom.
I'll have a pop at them. And when you're kind of going backwards and forwards, you'll see it if anyone follows it. I'm basically just giving them rope to hang themselves. I kind of know what I'm saying. I'm being like deliberately belligerent just to sort of like let them say more and more dumb stuff. And it always comes out eventually. They just go, well, you know what? Like, why did you think anyone cares about your opinion? And then the second you go, well, actually, here's a load of people who have cared for my opinion, including like those websites you were just quoting a minute ago, and that's what gets you done. That's the block, because that's when they realize, like, oh shit, he is more important than me.
I am a worthless human. It's that initial bite, that little adrenaline and saltiness you get from that. That's yeah,
I love it.
Sustenance.
I mean, I shouldn't, like, don't get me wrong, it's really dumb to like feed the trolls and stuff, but I do love it.
Yeah, but we all have our little hobbies.
Yeah, exactly. I do love it. I can't help myself sometimes. I can't help it.
Well, we're not here to talk about baiting fanboys.
No.
In any form. Shall we get to the question?
Please.
What the fuck do you want?
I want more Mystical Ninja.
What's a Mystical Ninja?
Mystical Ninja is a series...
Exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah, it's a series of games starring a mystical ninja called Goemon and his mates. And they kind of cut about a sort of, an olden times Japan.
Well, we say olden times. You're running about, it looks Edo period.
Yeah, Edo period.
But there's quite a lot of mechanical wonders.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's a lot of like weird sort of future robot-y stuff going in there as well. But it's kind of this sort of like, most of the time, when the enemies aren't around, when everything is nice and peaceful in the world of the Mystical Ninja, it is just like an Edo period Japan. So you've got a lot of that, and it's weirdly like respectful to like the history and stuff like that. Like it like there's a lot of like focus on like villages and the things that people wear and the things that people eat in these things, and then suddenly there'll be like a gigantic alien spaceship firing robotic monsters around the land that you've got to take on, and it also tends to roll in, as well as their own silly ideas, but like sort of myth from the era as well, like like dragons and stuff like that. Yeah,
I suppose even Goemon himself is based on an ancient thief figure.
A sort of Robin Hood type figure. But yeah, they're an excellent series of games that have been about since the SNES, and they've sort of dropped off a cliff post PS2. I think was the last one really. But the one that I'm really focusing on here is the N64 one, which was called Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. Which came out, what was it? Like first year of N64 maybe came out?
Yeah, would have been. Looking at it here, I think a 97 release.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, 98 for us maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Was this one you were aware of before it came out, or? Sort of.
So basically, I had a SNES, and obviously I wanted an N64, and when it came out, it was slightly too rich for my parents' blood. Was it $250 at launch? But I was all in on N64 stuff. So I went to, of all things, Tomorrow's World Live, which is going to fucking date me and this podcast by mentioning that. And they had an N64 stand there. So like it was the first time I ever sort of got to play like pre-release stuff. Yeah. So me and a mate, we were playing like Wave Race and Shazzy Empire before release and stuff.
Nice.
But when it came out, it was only a couple of lads I went to school with who got the N64. Kind of, I was in secondary school. They lived in other villages and stuff. But we spent a lot of time together playing those N64 games. And it was all the obvious stuff, Mario 64, Shadows and stuff. But when the first price drop came, it dropped to 150 quid, but it happened real quick. And I don't know if anyone remembers this, but it dropped so quickly that Nintendo had to give away free games. You could send like, proof of purchase off, and you got like a choice of one of the launch games as well. So those guys got like one of the launch games, but when it dropped to 150, I think I was at my grandparents' house at the time, but my mum and dad were like, now's the time. Fair enough. Yeah. You can have an N64. So I got an N64 and Wave Race. But when I came back to the village from the north, my good mate in the village had got one too. And that's when shit got real, because now both of us had an N64, like best mates, we both got the same console. This is it.
Especially even just for the trading.
That's exactly, because previously, like he had the Mega Drive, I had the SNES, I had a C64, he was Master System, and we'd never been on that same page. But when I came back, I was like, dude, I've got an N64. He was like, I've got one too. And then it was like, right, this is it. And yeah, we basically were saying, we were buying shit that the other person wasn't. And he came back from, town one day, and he had this game, Mystical Ninja. Now, was I aware of it? We both read a lot of video game magazines. We knew what Mystical Ninja was from things like Super Play, kind of covering a lot more import games on the SNES.
Yeah.
And I think CVG had been talking about Mystical Ninja, but we didn't really know what it was or, what to expect from it. Now, it's probably worth noting at this point that we were obviously, because we're sensible people, are quite big fans of Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. And we'd obviously both played Mario 64. And you can see the lineage directly from a game like Super Mario World, where you've got these 96 levels, individual stages, and how you can stretch that into the 120 stars.
Yeah.
So instead of it being a level that's this one objective that you've got to get through, it's now this one task that you have to do on a level. That you've got, there's 6 of them. But you can see how they've extrapolated the 2D concept to 3D, right? And this is going to sound a little mad to anyone who wasn't there when things went from like everything is 2D to like 3D, especially with the N64.
Oh, yeah.
We'd only sort of dabbled with PS1 stuff at this point. But we started playing Mystical Ninja thinking, see what it's like. And we got out of the first town and onto, is it the first highway that you go out into?
Kai Highway?
Kai Highway. And there's that little... it's basically just like a little open room, really, when you factor in what games are like now. It's a big room with a skybox and a shop, a travel office in the middle of it that you go to, and that's where you get the map for the game, and then you can open up the map screen and see, oh my god, this is fucking massive.
Go anywhere.
Yeah, and then you go on to Mt Fuji, climb up Mt Fuji, get the chain pipe, and obviously the chain pipe allows you to grapple onwards and get into the first dungeon because you need to grapple over the pit to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that first hour, both of us, he was probably playing it because it was his game, maybe we passed the pad, but I remember both of us having this like simultaneous dawning realization.
Mm-hmm.
This is fucking Zelda.
Oh yeah.
And because we knew how much we loved A Link to the Past, all of the things that we loved about Link to the Past, like that whole post-game stuff where you're sort of doing all the extra hearts and side quests that maybe you didn't figure out when you made it to the last boss and stuff like that, suddenly our heads are like running like rampant with like, this is going to be that again.
Oh yeah, all the possibilities.
And to some extent it isn't, but to some extent it is. Structurally, it absolutely is. It doesn't have as much to do as a game like A Link to the Past, but like, we went from being like, oh, let's check it out, to like instant, oh my god, we love this.
But this is even moments at the Kai Highway. If you jumped off the bridge and swam to a waterfall, you could find one of the fortune dolls.
Yeah, one of the dolls. Yeah. But that's it. Is like being able to compare it to something that had come before is what made us excited about it in that present, because we were suddenly going like, oh, so those things, they're your hearts, and I've just got 4 of them, and now I have more hearts. That's something that we've done before. We've just, got an item which allowed us to get into a dungeon, and we've just beat a boss in that dungeon, and now we can move on to the next area, and there's going to be more of these. And it's just knowing that stuff and realizing that stuff, it's like you almost get to settle in at that point, like, oh, there's nothing to worry about here. This is... this is that thing we already love, and we never would have been able to imagine what it was like in 3D until you're suddenly realizing it's there.
At this time we were still looking at magazines. Of course, no video footage or anything like that at the time. Ocarina of Time was still off in the distance.
Yeah,
it's coming, but
it looked totally different. It had,
this is a little taster of what you might be getting soon.
Well, no, but that's actually, it's funny you mention that, because I do remember us having that conversation and going like, fucking hell, if this is good, imagine what actual Zelda's going to be like.
Yeah.
And it turns out we were right, because I don't know if anyone knows, but like Ocarina of Time is like, it's a pretty solid game, like I would say. It's not bad at all.
It's reviewed well.
Yeah, it reviewed very well at the time. It's it was this kind of being able to suddenly see something in a magazine, and this is a kind of lost thing. I'm getting fully into old man territory. It's a kind of lost art, this, and I think it's a lost art by design. Is when you looked at Mystical Ninja in the magazines, you didn't know how it played.
Yeah.
The closest we could look at was Mario 64, and obviously it's not that, but you see 3D model, maybe it feels like Mario 64. We hadn't, maybe it feels like Tomb Raider. Surely it can't feel like Tomb Raider. See, we're already working with like limited information here, and we're trying to figure out what this game is. And it was only when we had it in our hands and played it for like an hour or so, we could start piecing, it's like Zelda, but 3D, cool, we've got it, this is good. But now, by design, you are never supposed to see a trailer for let's say Horizon Zero Dawn. You are never supposed to look at that trailer and go, I don't know what this is about.
Yeah.
And that's not an accident. That is by design. You are supposed to look at a trailer for a game like that and know, right, well, I know that holding left aims. I know that I'm probably holding down that button to jump or free run or whatever. Like, you're not supposed to ever think, I don't know how that even feels in the hand. You're supposed to be completely aware of it, because they don't want to put anyone off. In fact, I've said this a few times to people. The only game I can think of in recent time that people looked at and went, you know what, I ain't got a fucking clue what that's like, was Death Stranding. Where people were looking at actual gameplay of Death Stranding and going, well, I guess he's holding down L to aim here, but like I can't really figure out what he's doing or what's
Again,
doing
yeah,
what.
it wasn't a sequel. It wasn't based on any previous work.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there are control things that are in place now that are standards.
Staples, yeah.
And some of that's obviously great, but some of it does make a lot of games feel the same, and that is a thing that you just did not have back then because it was the Wild West.
3D platforming was in its infancy. We didn't really know what to expect.
3D full stop was in its infancy.
Yeah.
Like I love Tomb Raider. I'm replaying the remakes at the minute, but like Tomb Raider was fully 3D, a massive world and things that you could explore within it, but it couldn't be any different, more different from Mario 64 and Goemon. And all three of them are like three different ways of exploring how to move in a 3D space. And, some people are obviously going to say Mario 64 was so much smoother, but I don't think, Tomb Raider's bad for what it was trying to do with its block grid-based sort of thing.
Given that it had to be played on a D-pad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was this really weird period that I'm obviously super nostalgic for, if you hadn't guessed from my tone of voice. But part of what made it so interesting is like you didn't know what you were getting. And now it is kind of like you take a look at like any third-person game and you literally know what button does what.
Yeah.
2 years before the game comes out. You're like, I kind of know what I'm doing then.
Right? Just when you mention that, I don't think I've ever been as overwhelmed by a game. When I got it, I come from small town Ireland.
Do you?
I do indeed. And they wouldn't let me leave.
All right.
Contained. But there's a fantastic chain, Extravision, if you've ever come across it. Fantastic people. But it was a tiny, small little shop. And their N64 section was even smaller and tinier.
Right.
And I think there was possibly about 6 games. If you got there on a Friday late, it was bare. It was gone. Empty.
Right.
That's how I found Mischief Makers, because nobody else wanted it. I know. Cracker.
Yeah, good one.
So I went late one Friday, and the only thing left was this weird fucking blue-haired Muppet-looking thing. I said, right, well, I suppose this is it, because a bad game's better than no game for the weekend. So,
yeah.
Right, this'll do. Okay.
Is that what Miyamoto said that one time?
It was, yes. The famous quote. Got it home, stuck the cartridge in. Fantastic days with no day one patches or nonsense like that. And you get introduced with this opening. It's
song.
An anime opening. Yeah, it's a full song in Japanese. What the fuck is this? Okay, never contended with anything like this. And similar sort of thing, you're playing it. Actually, it took me a wee while to get out of Goemon's house because I didn't realise sliding doors were a thing and thought that was a wall.
Yeah. I think we had that as well. We stumbled across it by accident. It wasn't that we were in there for ages, but we were definitely like, oh, we've left.
I was definitely in there longer than the developers intended, but it was fucking brilliant. The scene, it's an opening cut scene where they're getting thrown out of a shop or a restaurant because Ibismaru tried to get naked.
Yeah, he tried to negotiate a discount with his hypnotic dance, which he has to perform in the nude.
I'd never come across anything like it before, or since, really. But
should probably suggest that this also has a laughter track underneath all of this as well, which is one of the best parts of the game, is that there is a sort of in-studio laughter track.
Is sometimes delayed and put into places where I didn't think there were jokes.
Yeah, for sure.
What? Goemon getting called Fernandez by some of the villains.
Yeah.
Why is everybody laughing? I don't know what's going on. And from going from games that are, don't want to say safe, but predictable, you kind of know what you're getting. That sensation of just being dropped, like culturally thrown off a jetty.
Yeah, for sure.
That game is so Japanese. But I love that. I would love to play something that made me that aghast and confused, but strangely drawn towards.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, we'll probably get into this a little later, but to this day, even within the Mystical Ninja series, there's nothing like Mystical Ninja on the N64.
Oh no, I went back and got the Super Nintendo game that was brought to our shores, but it's like a scrolling beat 'em up, if anything. It's not the same adventure. Yeah, not bad in any way, but just not the same.
Yeah, if any, like all the Goemon games on the SNES are very good, and the other N64 one is also a really good game on the N64. It's 2-player. There's loads of different routes. It's got that Mario World style thing where there's multiple exits on certain levels and stuff, so there's a reason to explore. Brilliant, but it is a 2D platformer and an action platformer again. There's a few little elements in here, but it's not a sort of knockoff Zelda. which is the weirdest part. Now, what they did do is on the PS2, they did do a Goemon game that was an RPG again. Now, I should probably preface this by saying to anyone who's getting excited right now, it isn't very good. I've tried. And for the longest time, it was Japan only.
Yeah.
Now, there was a translation for it that was in process, and for a myriad of silly reasons, it didn't come out. Now, what ended up happening about, I think it was 2 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago. It's in the last few years. It got leaked, the translated version, and it's a bit of a weird one because it's not that the translation got leaked. It was a sort of 3/4 full beta, 3/4 finished beta version that is fully translated. And basically, it has some bugs because it's an unfinished build of the game they were translating along the same time. And people are assuming at some point, people will take the translation and put it into the finished Japanese version, and then you'll have a finished version. That hasn't happened yet, and largely the reason why it hasn't happened is because the reality is it's not that good. And
it's not that passion behind it.
Yeah, and it's a reboot as well. So, they don't, all the characters are in it, but they don't look anything like their characters. Like, he's a younger, more traditionally anime style looking character. I
think I've seen the artwork for that one. All right, yeah.
He's got blue hair and stuff. However, the intro is incredible, and I stress that you all check that out immediately. But it's just a shame because that's the closest they've come to kind of retreading the RPG boards in a sense that it's a bit more like Zelda, where there's dungeons and bosses and items that you get to progress with. The other ones do have RPG elements to it, but realistically, this is closest. And then the closest we've had to a Goemon game since is was it Mamoru do Bakaru? No Bakaru that came out last year.
Yeah, it's kind of a spiritual successor on the
So
Switch.
I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. I had to. Brilliantly, I will just quickly shout out to anyone who's looking at it, but the community behind this, they translated the whole game in less than a month.
Oh, cool.
So it's on Unity. So it was literally a case of just opening it up in Unity and typing in the English translation. So someone who could read it all didn't have to do needed no programming or hacking knowledge.
Yeah.
So it was just a case of translating, and it turns out there's not a lot of dialogue in it, and a lot of it's repeated.
Oh, even better.
So this person was like, I've just translated chapter 1, there's X amount of chapters, but in translating chapter 1, I've also kind of accidentally translated all of the menus and shops in the game. So it is just a case of me playing it through and just doing the story as it goes.
Yeah, because that's one I was tempted to import, but it was the lack of English. It was kind of, if it's like Mystical Ninja, I'd never get through that without a guide.
Yeah. Well, there is now obviously a very good guide out there because it's fully translated, but if if you're a little bit more enterprising, you can get a fully hacked version of it with full English translation that works perfectly on a Switch or other things that Nintendo have recently said they don't like. But again, it's an action game. It's that's all it is. It's just a series of platform levels. It runs like shit, and that's not actually a Switch problem this time. It's apparently the version of Unity it runs on is super old, which again kind of sort of implies that it wasn't the biggest budget game either. Possibly, in many ways, yeah. So it's kind of fun for what it is, and it's definitely good, but it runs like shit, and it's a passable platformer on.
Do you see any of the DNA from Mystical Ninja?
That's the thing. 100%, it's in there. The guide looks like Goemon. It really, it's everything about it, and it still has that thing, whereas it's in this kind of sort of historical setting, and a lot of the nods to historical Japan. Again, it's treated with a strange reverence. So there's a level which is on a modern skyscraper, but you're finding these little dudes around that give you a little bit of information about the area of Japan you're in, and it's literally a historical or geographical fact. And there's 5 on each level. They're actually little turds. Now I think about it, the little golden poos.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, that tell you these facts. And again, it's that sort of silliness again, weird reverence for the country and its history, and the fact that you're playing as a dude with powers who's got blue hair and sort of a ninja. It's got it all, but again, it's not the RPG. It's not Mystical Ninja with starring Goemon. It doesn't have that sort of adventure-y thing. It's just level, and there's a goal at the end of the level that you hit, and as if you were playing Mario.
I suppose that was another thing, Mystical Ninja on the N64, it was based on Japan. You actually travelled throughout it.
Yes, yeah.
There were a few real-life landmarks thrown in there, which I didn't know at the time. I know retroactively.
Yeah.
Bit smarter than I was at 10, hopefully. And it seemed so massive at the time. I think I always look at the Yakuza or like a Dragon games for the virtual tourism.
Yeah.
And even in this, you see some of the old shrines. Something you'd recognize in later.
This is what I was getting at. Yeah, is it's these shrines and stuff that. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not accurate. You know, we get it, but like
you can't actually jump on the roof of them and work your way up. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but like clearly there's like a sort of idea of like, oh, you're in this part of Japan, which was kind of known for this thing, so we're gonna scatter it around to give it that sort of flavor that. Perhaps if you lived in Japan and knew all of this stuff going in, you'd be like, oh wow, fucking hell, it's this. And I don't know, it kind of gave the impression, playing the whole thing, that you sort of stumbled across this thing that must be massive in Japan. Yeah. And no one knows about it over here. And that's kind of cool. It turns out the reality is it's fairly big in Japan, but not massive, and tiny over here. So it was a weird one, but yeah, it's strange to say when I've just compared it to Zelda so many times. That it still somehow manages to come off feeling quite unique in its own way.
I don't think I've come across anything like it, really. Even there are moments where you meet the Kappa, mythological figure, and did not know what it was when I met it. I know now, but I can't even think of the name. The water bamboo. Oh, what are they called? There's a length of bamboo, and it fills up with water. It makes a noise.
It ticks. It makes that noise. Yeah, and you hear it throughout the game. It's used as the menu noise.
Yeah,
as well. Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about.
But it was things like that, and the food upgrades, or sushi, or dango, and it's just so unapologetically Japanese. I love it.
Yeah, no, this is it. It's so it's unapologetic is the word. It's like it very much is its own thing, and it's kind of a shame that outside of, I mean, even the N64 Zelda games, there's not, I mean, even maybe Wind Waker's probably the closest. I think after that, they kind of lose sight of that era a little bit. For better or for worse, you know, it is its thing. But like, there is something about an N64 adventure game that still stands out as quite unique. And I think that the Zelda games, and this isn't a knock on them or anything like that, they're obviously pretty good.
It's sounding a bit like a knock here.
But, well, they're Zelda games. You know what you're getting, right? Whereas with Mystical Ninja, you're still getting that kind of structure that you enjoy from a Zelda game. But in terms of like what it actually presents, there's still not like it, and not even within Goemon games. Like it's unique within its own series, which I think is silly. I can't believe they didn't go back to that well at least once.
Yeah, big time. Although elements of it you would see a lot in Metroidvanias, you know, areas being locked off until you get certain skills or unlock certain tools. I can see what they use in the formula of this just being adapted in other games. It's not like they've given up on it completely. Yeah,
for sure. It's a shame that the second one was, I mean, it's a good game, let's not mess around, but it's a shame that the second one on the N64 wasn't another crack at something like this, because that would have been after Ocarina of Time, and I think that like learning a few things from it would have been amazing.
Big time. We've gone this far, not touched on the story.
So I mean, do you have notes there? But the general gist of it is there is a gigantic spaceship appears over where is it they live?
This is Edo Village.
Edo Village, yeah. So a massive spaceship appears over the castle there, and it's run by these goons called the Peach Mountain Shoguns, who are incredibly flamboyant. And their end goal is to turn all of Japan into a stage so they can perform on it.
Again, one of those things that just went completely over my head playing it for the first time. They've changed the castle into a European-style castle.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the problem?
Yeah, it's so good. And I mean, that sort of framework is enough to hang a lot of silliness on. But yeah, the end result is they are just trying to have their own place to dance around on, and you know, all the enemies are kind of like weird, almost like marionette things or like little stage things, which, you know, play into that. But the whole game is it's full of just like brilliant little things that are sort of hanging off the fact that the entire premise is dumb.
Oh yeah,
like the fortune teller. the fortune teller is a dude who is doing the hula hoop. He's got two big guys in his doing the hula hoop, and he's just sat there cross-legged and just shouts plasma. To this day, I don't know why he shouts plasma.
When you get the game over screen, if you're bad enough to get there, it's those two guys with the hula hoops.
Two guys doing the hula hoops, yeah. It's so weird. And there is some stuff that was changed from the Japanese original release, and I actually love how it was changed because it makes it sound even more old man. But before the first big robot battle with Impact, which is another thing we haven't touched on, there's so much in this game. It's so dense. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's constant. I think this is another reason why it's so good. Every sort of area that it either looks radically different or there's some new thing.
And it is about when you think you have a handle on the situation or you know what this game's throwing at you. No.
Yeah, no.
It's completely gone.
Here's a gigantic robot fight.
With musical number.
With its own musical number that it sings about itself. Breakdown. But the best part about it is you get in before you have this gigantic robot fight. You're heading to see this old man who lives in this pagoda, and during the giant robot fight, his pagoda gets destroyed by the other enemy that you're fighting. It's collateral damage. It turns out that he's really upset because you destroy all of his porn mags that he had dashed, but they changed that for the Western release, which I think is funnier, to all of his car magazines.
Yes.
Just like it's some old boy with a load of like auto traders that he's collecting, and
got this emotional connection to.
Yeah, I think that's so good. But yeah, in the original one, he had a load of dirty mags that went up in flames. So there's a couple of bits like that in it, and it is a little dodgy in that sort of stuff as well. Like Ibisumaru, who we previously talked about getting nude, he has the greatest crawl animation in the history of video games.
Even his little hop when he's running too. Everything about him.
It has the Mario 64 thing, actually. This is where you get super nerdy, is Mario 64, one of the reasons why you will see people critique it is largely because they didn't... Not many people do, but when they do, it's because they didn't play it on the N64. They played it on emulation with an Xbox pad or on any of the reissues.
That Switch with the little nub.
Yeah, if you haven't played an N64 game on an N64 with an N64 pad, I'm not listening to your criticism of it. If you have and you tell me it's shit, then fair fucks. But when you play Mario 64, the level of control you have over Mario's acceleration is insane, and also he has so many different animations that you don't see if you're playing it on emulation under an Xbox pad because it moves too quickly through them.
Yeah,
Mystical Ninjas has that to a slightly lesser extent, but it's still very, very good on original hardware, where your guy starts off tiptoeing and then he kind of does a slow skip, then a fast skip, and then a jog, and then a run as you sort of go through the pushing the stick to the limit of the housing, I guess would be it. But Ibisumaru, they've all got interesting crawl animations. Goemon kind of does the worm, but Ibisumaru, he lies on his back and air thrusts. He humps the air as he goes around.
So you get 4 members in your party. One of them's Sasuke, the little clockwork robot.
Yeah.
Who has an attack when he crawls, and none of the rest of them seem to. Like an upwards one. His hair
you're right, he does.
Spikes up.
Yeah, you're right. And the other
no
one's...
reason.
Yeah,
don't see the reason or situation that would come in handy, but I'm glad it's there.
It's there, yeah. And Yei's the other one, isn't it? It's the female character, and she's just like a ninja.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Yay. Y-A-E. Yay.
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 But yeah, she's and all of them are unique. They've all got like unique abilities and stuff, and different powers. And I mean, you can basically play the whole game as Goemon, other than like the odd bit where you have to go over certain things.
Well, if you want to fast travel, you need to switch to another character and use a flute.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a few things like that, but it's still a cool idea. It's still something that seems so trivial now. Like, oh, you can change character, but different abilities. That's kind of annoying that you have to switch.
Well, how excited people got when they thought Luigi was in Super Mario 64.
But yeah,
the sheer thought of one more character was brilliant.
Yeah, this is it. Is at the time it's like 4 characters. That's insane.
I did play a lot of Sasuke. I like the little robot.
He was the quickest, I think.
I think that was probably it. Yeah. And when he attacked people, he cut them in half. He
did, yeah. There's a little thing where they sliced in half. Yeah, it's little details. But I think that's the thing that you'll find that if you ever speak to anyone else, not necessarily talking to you, I'm talking to the audience here. If you speak to anyone,
you idiots,
who likes this game, they'll do the same shit we've just done.
Oh yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's obviously a good game, right? You wouldn't be here, 30 years later talking about it if it wasn't a good game. But there's undeniably better games in that genre, even on the N64, right? But despite that, there is nothing like it still. Even similar games, it'll change something up. Like Zelda is obviously a very similar game to it, but Zelda doesn't have any fucking massive robot fights or a laughter track or
not yet.
4 different characters you can change into and stuff like that. It's got all these it's got such a unique style and flavor to it.
The writing that really struck home. There's a moment you're not able to leave the first town until you finish the first castle, the first dungeon.
Yeah.
Technically, there are 2 guards that will stop you from leaving.
Oh, yeah.
But before you leave, if you talk to them, one of them's quite depressed that the game wasn't named after him and that he has to stand beside this gate until you hit the credits. And he's a level of meta that I hadn't come across in game writing at that stage.
Yeah, exactly. It's stuff like that. And again, I'd probably seen the odd bit of fourth wall breaking throughout my life at this point. Not even in games. I'm talking about in general. Like probably the odd TV show or the odd bit of a film that did something like that. But in a game, that was like the first time. I can't think of it. Maybe
much
something
more common now. Grasshopper in later years would kind of lean into that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, that's sort of the same sort of. That's sort of the vibe. It's not as edgy as Grasshopper stuff, but again, it's just so obviously like committed to its own bit.
Yeah,
that
just
like
fully leans into it.
Yeah, even in ways that some people now might consider not so good, but it doesn't care. It's like, no, this is what It's completely its own game. It doesn't feel like at any point a fucking focus group said, that people don't like that sort of exploration, remove it.
People hate blue dragons, take them out.
It feels 100% like this was their end goal. It doesn't feel like it's been compromised in any way,
undiluted in any way at all. One complaint, and it was quite a complaint for me, I will say. I had a rumble pack on my N64. I didn't have a memory card. Yeah, so especially because this was a rental game, I needed to keep the N64 on constantly over a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I think I finished it once that way.
Nice. You gotta do these things sometimes, though.
Back when I didn't pay for my own electricity, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there you go. It's worth it because you wouldn't have been able to kill 30 seconds of time on your own podcast 30 years later if you didn't do that. So I think that you've justified it there. No, it was a game that required a memory card. One of those fellas that I mentioned at the start who got the N64 at full price. So obviously, if you're getting the N64 at full price, they could afford it. And they lived in a fucking much nicer place than I did anyway. So they definitely could afford it. But he got a Churrock on his birthday. And he got a memory card with it. And the memory card cost 50 quid.
They were a bastard.
And Churrock cost £95 and worth every fucking penny.
£70 games today, it's disgusting, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you think about how much better Churrock is than Spider-Man 2,
true.
To be fair, they could have, they've got a lot of headway.
Excuse
there.
me,
they keep charging.
Churrock could never turn into a cube, so checkmate.
Oh right, yeah, that's true. Damn. You can dance though, I think, if you put disco mode on. But it was just this perfect storm of early in the N64 life, completely unique, nothing else like it. Links to older games that were great, and we'd never been able to kind of extrapolate what they would be like in 3D. And suddenly this was giving us all these like, oh my god, like this is what this sort of game's going to be like. And yeah, I think that anyone who did play at the time, it's one of those games that will just stick with you. I think that it's still good enough to play now, and you'll enjoy it. I don't think the camera is particularly bad.
Even at the time, people kind of did mention it, but there was nothing to compare it to. There was no bar yet for camera control.
Yeah, I think that like because a lot of the places like open areas and stuff, and you've got a camera reset button behind you. Yeah, sure, it's not dual analog, but
C buttons were used for other functions.
So all you could do is reset it behind you. But once you've got your head around that, like there's maybe a couple of parts of the game, like unfortunately one of them's right at the start. Mt Fuji's a bit of a dickhead with the camera, but after that, like most of it's fine. So I think you could play it now and still really enjoy it. It's got some
lovely little moments. I know early polygons are never really fondly remembered that much, but the area where you find Sasuke, no, it's one of the batteries you find from. It's the solitary tree surrounded by water.
Oh yeah, no, I remember.
I just thought that was fantastic. A little ambient track to go along with it.
This got some soundtrack as well.
Music.
Yeah, some soundtrack.
Again, you will hear so many tracks throughout this episode. So
yeah, for sure. Just like a little moment where I was like, you know what? The thing about this era of N64 game is just some of it is a hard sell. I don't think this is.
Yeah, some hasn't aged that well. Some of it has aged well, but doesn't play well on modern hardware, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, like I'll happily admit that I've got a pretty high tolerance for PS1 and N64 era bad things. I don't think they're bad things, but people will argue the toss about the camera in a game that doesn't have dual analog.
Yeah.
And people will argue the toss about certain control restrictions that the PS1 had due to the fact that most people would only have a digital pad until over halfway through the console's life. I am kind of good with those two things. Camera stuff on N64, blurry graphics, no problem, never had an issue. PS1 weird control stuff because they're kind of figuring out how to do 3D with a D-pad. Again, I'm kind of down with that. But I don't think Goemon gets hit particularly hard by them. I think like it's still picking up. And that's what I was going to say, what I forgot. The reason why I bring this up is because a bunch of Nintendo stuff a while ago got leaked online. And one of the things that got leaked, I believe, is something that allows you to decompile N64 stuff, which is one of the reasons why we now have the PC port of Mario 64 and recently the PC port of Perfect Dark that's out there, which you can just play with a mouse and keyboard. It like fully works on PC. And soon they will even like have the menus and stuff changed and whatnot. It's just that's a bit bigger job. But if you have a look at some of the GitHub pages for them, Mystical Ninja is actively being worked on. So
that's what I'd like to hear.
It is in the process of like being decompiled. And one of the things that you will imagine comes alongside with that is the obvious stuff. It will have dual analog controller support. Like, you will be able to move the camera.
Ultra widescreen.
It will have stuff like ultra widescreen. Yeah, like it will have a lot of the kind of mod cons of modern gaming that people expect. And I think it falls into a similar category as GoldenEye, which is when you... Like, if you're like me and you can tolerate that stuff, or even enjoy that stuff as the case might be, you're always going to have a good time with those games. But some people can't. Some people need dual analog to play a 3D platform.
I normally find it's people that heard all the great things about this game but never played it back in the day. And
100%.
Like, yes, you were wrong all along.
Yeah, no, 100%. But one of the things I found with GoldenEye is when that Xbox 360 version got leaked a couple of years ago, the one that was meant to come out on live, but, hilarious licensing issues ensued. The first thing that game does is they've added dual analog support, because obviously it was designed to be played on an Xbox 360 controller. And I'll go to bat for GoldenEye, as it's a game I love and it's a game that I still enjoy playing to this day. But more so than Goemon, I can understand why people struggle with the controls these days. Right, I can understand that. I'm not completely blind to it. But what I like about it is when you give it standardized controls instead of feeling like everything else, it allows the fact that it was a bit different to really come to the surface, and you find that with GoldenEye specifically, when you're playing it with Call of Duty's controls, you're suddenly like, man, there's nothing like this. There's nothing like this. It still feels so unique. And that's kind of what I'm hoping we see with a lot of these N64 games that are getting, decompiled and eventually PC ports. I'm hoping that we do see that with Mystical Ninjas. When you, and I'm using air quotes here because I don't mind, I'm totally fine with them, but when you free them from the hardware constraints of the machine itself and the controller, I don't think it's suddenly just going to feel like a generic game.
Ooh.
I think it's still going to have its own thing. It's still going to feel cool and unique to play.
Like when you go back to these older titles, you realize how uniform we've become with games, even if it's for controls games, just story beats, perhaps.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, like that period, just because they were kind of they were figuring out stuff as much as we were figuring out stuff. But
yeah, as you said, Wild West of development. I suppose we're kind of touching on it at the moment. Do you want to move on to what the fuck we want? Because as we talked about emulation, like that's the only way you're going to play this. There's no legal way to pick it up.
Yeah, it is, and obviously emulation is a bad word at the minute because Nintendo have been at it again, shutting down a few projects.
Check that. Now you can't play the games we refuse to sell you.
Yeah, well, what's kind of dumb about this is they've shut down Yuzu, which, to be fair, Yuzu were being idiots and trying to charge money for emulation, which is always that's putting your head above the fucking parapet. Like, I'm not surprised you got sniped there, but unfortunately, it's had the side effect of, like, it closed Citra, the 3DS emulator as well.
Yeah.
And also a few other sort of maybe smaller emulation projects for, like, on Android. A few of the people have got cold feet now and gone like, oh, I'm not fucking developing anymore.
Nobody wants to fuck with Nintendo for $2 million.
And these are for, like, Game Boy projects.
Yeah.
Like stuff that you literally can't buy anymore. And they've gone, like, I'm not going to be developing my emulator anymore because I don't want to get sued. So, like, it has this really bad knock-on effect. And hilariously, Nintendo use emulators themselves on the Switch to play their games. So, yes, emulation is the only way to do it.
What game was it that still had the credits for the person that ripped the ROM? Was it one of the Mario Game Boy titles for the Wii U?
It might have been, yeah. It was something on the Wii U. My favourite one of those is the PS1 port of Chrono Trigger. It's fucking amazing. This is massively off topic. If you put that disc in a PC, there is an SMC file, which is a Super Nintendo ROM file on there. And if you drag it onto your desktop and run it in ZSNES, it boots. It's like, it's so dumb that there's stuff like this in place.
And say porting games isn't as easy as copying and pasting. Liars.
Yeah, there you go. But emulation is the only way you can play it. Now, the reason why it's a good thing that you brought this up is this is unfortunately one of those games that is a bit of a dickhead to emulate.
Big time.
There are now things in place. If you use the parallel core in RetroArch, that will do it. That will do the job, right?
It's the days of PJ64 and the likes. It was very...
It didn't run the intro
plugins.
The intro fucking died and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's been one of those games that for the longest time didn't run under emulation. And even if you were to download RetroArch right now, you would have to change the rendering core to a specific one, which you should change it to anyway. It's the best one, parallel. But that one is the only one that I've played where I'm like, oh, this kind of runs perfect as well as you can get it. There's still the odd tiny thing that's wrong with it. But because it's a weird game to emulate, it is also one of those ones that if you do want to try and be a little cute with it and, remove the blur and up the resolution, you will get some performance issues unless you're on a bit of a monster PC, just because it is a bit of a knob to emulate this one. So, and that's the tragic part of all of this is it isn't just because N64 games ultimately, despite everything I've just said, it can be emulated. You can play it. There are a couple of caveats, but you can play it. But it is an N64 exclusive. It is not available on anything else. It's never been reissued in any way, shape, or form. So it is running the risk of being stuck there.
Yeah,
which sucks because it's legit one of the best games on the platform. And as we've just said, it holds up. It holds up.
It is something if people love games, it is something everybody should get the chance to experience. Konami have kind of opened up the vaults recently. A little. Peeking out, we got to say. Yeah, I don't want Bloober Team touching Mystical Ninja.
No.
And the
God, no.
Metal Gear Solid Collection kind of came out not exactly the way everybody wanted it. I believe they're improving it as time goes.
What I would say, though, about that Metal Gear collection, the fact it was released in quote-unquote that state actually gives me hope for Mystical Ninja. And I'll explain why. The main problem with games these days is it's not about making profit. It's about making a lot of profit. Okay? So if you look at a game, I've used it a few times here, like Spider-Man 2, and its development budget, I think by like January, it sold like 5 million copies. And obviously there's lots of other factors to put in, but if you looked at its development budget, how much a copy of the game costs, I think 5 million copies is like, it had probably broken even, which is, you can't do that because you're in this position.
One of those titles, it's development, and then I think Disney gets a slice on top.
Yeah, so you're in this position here, right, where some of these big games, they have to sell record numbers to make the money back that'll make people go, that was worth it. So when you trickle that downhill to a collection of old games, right? A collection of old games is probably a lot cheaper to make than Spider-Man 2, right? Okay, let's be honest here. It's just sticking ROMs on a disc after all, right?
Copy and paste.
So if you're just copying and pasting a bunch of ROMs onto a disc and selling them, what that actually means to the money men is, well, Metal Gear is super popular. Now, we don't think this is going to sell as well as the 5 million copies Spider-Man 2 had done by January, but it's probably going to do. It's going to do all right. It's going to be a game that sells well. It's a collection of all the Metal Gear games. The more work you put into it, right? I'm using my hands here. This is terrible radio. The more work you put into it, you start to cut in to that bottom line because you get like this. Metal Gear doesn't suddenly appear in 4K on your fucking PS5 by magic, right? Someone has to work on that. And yes, I know emulators do it. Yes, I know emulators do widescreen support. But the second a company like that acknowledges that emulators exist and that they're using them, it's party time. So they never will, right? We have to just accept that.
And if emulators fall apart, you just shrug and go, oh, I'll try that again.
Yeah.
If you've bought a product and it falls apart,
exactly,
you go to Twitter.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things in place that have to be there in order to get this stuff over the line. But the reason why those Metal Gear games were released in that state, they simply released some of the best games ever made on a cartridge in a way that they played at launch, right? That's all they did. But the point is the more work you put in to bring those up to like modern spec, you're eating into a profit margin. And even though it might still be profitable, there will come a point where someone will look at that and go, it's not profitable enough.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to make this amount of money, and now because we put so much work, we're only going to make this amount of money. Which to you and I, us normal people listening, hopefully you're normal too, you will go, well, they're still making money. Surely they can do the extra work. That's not how these people work. They're looking at the margin, and it needs to be as big as possible. Now, the reason why I think that actually makes me a little bit more, willing to accept the idea that I think they might do something with at least some of the old Goemon games at some point is that they did just release them. Like, the idea of just getting them out the door and making money was on the cards. I do not expect in any way a full, remaster job, or even people making Mystical Ninja run in 4K, right? Even just up-resing the original game. The idea that Konami were happy with just putting the PS1 Metal Gear Solid on a disc as it was and releasing it, because that justified the profit margin, does mean that there is a chance that they can do that with anything at this point. Now, admittedly, the reason why they would have done it with Metal Gear is because although they could make it cheap and sell a lot of copies, the problem with Goemon is if they make it cheap, they still might not sell enough copies to justify.
Yeah, that brand awareness isn't available over here.
So it's that's probably the main thing that would eat at it. But it's I know it sounds really silly that like I'm almost saying like Konami's inability to put out a polished product makes me more confident in it. But in this, I think in this specific case,
exactly what I didn't want to hear.
Yeah, just because of the way that these games companies operate and what they are looking for at the end of the day is that it's not about making money, it's making a certain amount of money, like a specific margin of money.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's a chance that just putting them on a disc, if they can do that without needing to do a massive amount of work and not having to pay a lot of people to do it, because it's a bit more straightforward than, doing a remaster or touching them up so they look higher resolution. If they can just put them together, make sure the emulators don't shit themselves, make sure the games work, and release the collection, and that can justify a certain amount of profit, I think you can see it. I think we'll see something else from them first.
Yeah.
And then you might see Mystical Ninja.
Well, if we are going down Fantasyland, I mean, is there any teams you would like to see working on it? Is there anybody that you think, fuck yeah, you'd make a shit hot?
What, a new one?
Yeah.
A new one. Oh, that is tough. It wouldn't be the people who made Mamoru no Bakaru. Unfortunately,
because it is those action platformers. They're something that kind of died out big time.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It would probably be an indie dev. I'm trying to think of somebody who made like a really cool Metroidvania in recent times who kind of understand the world building and stuff. I think it would be nice to see something in the hands of a company like that. Maybe like, they've got their hands full making their own game. And maybe something like the people who did Hollow Knight. Something like that. Like they created a world there that managed to sit alongside literally Symphony of the Night and Super Metroid. Like they managed to put out a game that you could argue is in the top 3 Metroidvanias ever made. A lot of that is because of the atmosphere and the world and stuff. And I think that they would obviously understand like the sense of place, and that moment you just said about the single tree in the
just breathing life into little corners of the map. And
I think that they might be able to do something like that. But also, God, who else?
Because I was thinking more of platformer teams, the Platonics, and who are the crowd that did Penny's Big Breakaway recently?
Oh,
Sonic Mania team.
Yeah, the Sonic Mania lads. Yeah, I mean, they definitely do a good job.
The Evening Star, a bit newspapery for a.
I'm just trying to think of like anyone who'd look at doing like the 3D style one, because that's the thing, is it is
what the fuck's Rare doing at the minute? Everwild's not going anywhere.
Yeah, what are Rare doing at the minute? I mean, putting loads of stuff into Sea of Thieves last time I checked. I mean, they would be a good fit. Like Rare, their kind of vibe and stuff, it would certainly look that way. I mean, I think there's also a fair shout to make that something that you said earlier as well, like the Yakuza team.
Oh yeah,
I think that they could
for that identity.
Yeah, maybe they would be the ones to do the 3D style one, and the 2D Goemon ones, you'd look at someone like Team Cherry with their world.
Stick a spiky blue wig in Ichiban and
I would fucking play that. There is one thing that I think anyone who loves Goemon should definitely check out though, but there's an N64 Smash Brothers mod called I can't remember what it's called, but I've downloaded it. But you can get it from like the usual spots already pre-patched and ready to go. But they do like the trailers whenever they do an update for the mod, and they do it in the same way that Smash Brothers does the trailers. Honestly, these trailers, you have to see them. They are like proper as good as the Nintendo ones, and that sounds like hyperbole. Trust me, like they have the same reveals and moments.
Yeah,
and
that Mega Man reveal still, it's one of my favorite trailers.
These guys for their patch, and basically the previous patch they did, they put Goemon into it, and they used because they use all the N64 assets.
Oh, that was such a kick in the pills when they added the
Goemon
costume.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that sucked. But but at the end of last year, they did another mod, another update to the mod. And it starts in Edo Castle, and there's like all the Smash Brothers cast are like eating at this table, and they're watching like a bunch of go-go dancers on stage while they're eating, and it's like Samus is like sat next to Goemon and a bunch of the other characters that they've added into it, like all the Star Fox crew are in it, and they're all eating, and fucking Abyssamaru comes out, and it's like Abyssamaru joins the fight, and he's one of the characters they've added into it. And honestly,
I know what I'm doing later then.
I marked out for that. Like I was like as kids at the Nintendo Direct when they're like, yes, I was fully like, oh my god. And I've downloaded it, and it's really good, really really good fun. And so you can play as Goemon and Abyssamaru and they've put loads of stages from it. So there's like a Mt Fuji stage.
Oh, nice.
With like bits, and there's like a Edo Castle stage and stuff. It's really cool. Like they've put a lot of the N64 Goemon into this Smash mod, but it's well worth checking out if you are jonesing for not only more Goemon, but also people who kind of appreciate this specific era of the whole thing.
Well, I suppose any closing thoughts? We better get this knocked on the head.
Yeah, my kind of closing thoughts is like, obviously the whole point of this podcast, what the fuck do I want? And I think asking for more Mystical Ninja is a good thing. But the reality is, for me, I want more Mystical Ninja 64. I want that. I've played all of the translated Mystical Ninja games that are out there, the SNES ones, some of the PS1 stuff.
Yeah.
And they're all really good 2D platformers, some 2.5D style stuff. Some of them even have RPG elements. The PS2 one does have the towns that you visit, and then the bits between. And to some extent is about as close as you can get to what this is, where it's, towns, areas between the towns, dungeons, and so on and so forth. They've come so close, but even in its own, as I've said, even within its own series, this game is like quite unique. I would like to see a Zelda style, third person with the dungeons, with the world to explore, with the secrets.
I was going to say, everybody that's crying about the transfer over to the Breath of the Wild formula, I say, here, are you looking for some old style Zelda? Have I got a fucking game for you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, and as I've said, I don't think it suffers too badly from being on the N64.
No,
like, I think that most people are going to be able to tolerate kind of what it throws at them. Just stick with the camera past the first bit on Mt Fuji. That it's a ball ache, but once you get past that, it's fine. But yeah, no, that's what I would like. I'd just like to see someone else do it, and again, whether it be an indie dev who kind of does the sort of like Goemon alike that you see a lot these days, where it's like you snooze, you lose. If those guys aren't going to make a new F-Zero, then we're going to fucking do it. That sort of thing that you see, and obviously that indie team in Japan did the one that came out last year, Mamadou no Bakaru, which is, again, it's like a kind of idea of the platformer side of things.
Yeah.
Whether it be an official Goemon game or a sort of semi-official one like that, or whether it just be someone doing a Goemon alike, I would like to see someone do something like this Goemon, the N64
Yeah, so
one.
if anybody's doing the Kickstarter, let us know.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know if you're doing the Kickstarter, or just fuck it, wait, hurry up and get that PC port done.
Oh, yeah. Well, where will we send people if they want to find more of you?
My Twitter, @AndyHero. Spell it with an I, because I'm an idiot kid. That's the best way to find me. I know it sounds silly. I've got nothing to plug. Come hang out on my Twitch streams if you like old games, and someone probably talking shit about your favourite game from last year. And I've started trying to take YouTube seriously a little bit more, because I've got a load of capture stuff that I wasn't using, and
don't swear, they don't like that on YouTube.
Yeah, I've just been, tell me about it, but it's, yeah, that seems to be going well at the minute, just because it's a little bit less, like, I can kind of do it at my own pace. Like, if I get like an hour, I can just record my script that I was writing at another time and stuff. So I've started to do that, and that seems to be pretty consistent. And although, I have all the silly stuff like a Patreon and whatnot, I don't think, unless that suddenly blows up overnight, I don't think I'm ever going to release anything that's like exclusive to that. So you can just hang out and see all the shit I do for free. And if you just want to support it, you can find the links everywhere, or just give me some abuse on Twitter or something. And then who knows? Like, just follow me on Twitter, because like every 2 minutes I'm like, I'm doing this now. So it's probably the best way to stay. Brilliant
idea, and you should all pay attention.
It's probably the best way to stay up to date is just follow me on Twitter. Get that.
Yes, I will link that in the show notes if you're too lazy to type in 8 letters into Twitter.
Which I understand. I get it. Click on the show notes. I get it. I'm lazy too. It's
been an absolute delight. A trip down memory lane, and what a treat. What a long fucking episode.
Yeah, thanks for letting me on. I'm obviously, good luck with the edit, but thanks for letting me on.
I am so glad this was not a half-hour episode. There would be a bit of butchering. Andy, you've been an absolute delight. A pleasure. You were worth the wait.
I hope so. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, cheers again. Cheers for having me on.
But until next time, and hopefully there will be a next time, get fucked.
completely gone. No, it's gone. Cut that bit.
Cut nothing.